morning and welcome to our daily newspaper review session here on Trends in the Papers, where we bring you the latest update and insightful analysis on the news of the day. Of course, we review the top stories making the headlines, from politics to business to state of the economy. And of course, we implore you to stay with us as we explore the most pressing issues. We discuss different perspectives, sort of provide you with a comprehensive review of the stories as reported on the front pages of our dailies. We're going to start this morning, of course, by having conversations around some of the latest reports, especially those that broke yesterday. And I'm talking specifically about the new address of the president. But before we get into all of that, forgive my manners. Good morning to you and welcome to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola, and just like I highlighted earlier, you are listening to the Morning Express, and we kick off by providing you with information as reported on the front pages of our dailies, hence the title Trends in the Papers. I did tell you that we would be having conversations around the stories and also providing you with in-depth analysis with the help of Fᴜʟʟ, who would be joining us virtually in just a few seconds. And we would be having conversations, first of all, for this morning by reviewing the recent attempt of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to appease the Nigerian people. Earlier, the President had addressed the nation, I believe on the 4th of August, 4 days into the planned protest. He spoke to the nation, but Nigerians were rather disappointed with the content of the President's speech. They say it lacked empathy. It sounded something like a campaign. But then I believe in a bit to rectify this rhetoric. We had the president address the nation once again in a more empathetic tone. But then the reactions of people, the influence that it has on them is yet to be seen. So let's have conversations with Fᴜʟʟ first of all and see what he thinks of this particular address. Fᴜʟʟ, good morning to you. Nice to have you again.
Yeah, good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yes.
Very good.
Well, the president has spoken to us for a second time, this time with more empathy, pleading and admitting that he understands how painful the implementation of these policies are, but he's asking that we trust him to make the best of the situation that we have found ourselves as a result of the policies that he has made. Are you more comfortable with this most recent address?
Well, it's not about me, really, and it's not about being comfortable or not. I think at the end of the day, all of these conversations we're having still around nation building. I think the major issue that I think the president needs to now address is to bring up practical steps to bridge, the trust deficit that people have against the government. There's that issue of trust. People really don't trust the government again. And you can't blame Nigerians for not trusting the government at this time. It's been years of continuous disappointment. It's been years of failed promises. Years of some form of gated democracy that seems to only cater to the needs of those in government, their friends, their associates and families, whereas the majority of Nigerians are left behind to wallow in poverty and hardship. So you can't blame Nigerians who don't believe this rhetoric again. They switch well. These are things they consistently heard from our leaders, at least from 1999 till date. So you really can't blame people who think that these are just again mere statements that we're used to. And for this particular government, it's also the same thing, really. Oh, trust me. I understand your pain. I feel your pain. How I wish there was any other way. Believe that my policies are going to work. I think part of this official presidential video talks about the fact that these are long-term plans, that we should look beyond the current temporary pain. Basically summarizing it as it always starts before dawn. But what Nigerians are saying is that, look, Nigerians have always been patient. Nigerians have endured a lot of shenanigans from our leaders. Nigerians have endured several years of failed promises from our leaders. And they are waiting to see what is going to be done differently this time. And that difference they are talking about is for the leadership of this government, of this country at this time, to show some example. Show example in cutting down the cost of governance. Show example in serious and sustainable fight against corruption. Show example in taking us away from years of reckless appropriation of funds of scarce resources of the country to a few who are able to circumvent the process for their own personal gains and benefits. So Nigerians are waiting to show the leadership of the country at this time to now show serious example, lead, and not just tell the leader, the followers to endure the pain, whereas they live in affluence and wealth, whereas Nigerians continue to live in hardship and poverty. That's what Nigerians are saying. So for me, it's good that this official statement has come with much more empathy. I think it was a bit of a departure from the August the 4th address that sounded more argumentative. This one I think was a bit more persuasive. But beyond the persuasion, Nigerians are waiting to see whether our leaders will now begin to show some serious example that at least will assure them that indeed there are glory days ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Fuad. Let's begin the newspaper analysis properly at this point. We have the Punch, the Guardian, and the Vanguard newspaper. We'll kick off conversations with the Punch newspaper. It's quite a number of stories across the front pages of our dailies. Don't forget that we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you'd like to listen to the program and you don't have your radio on you, as long as you have access to the internet, you can join us on Facebook and on YouTube, and also start to drop your contributions using the live chat option, or you can use Radio Garden. Also, if you have internet access via Radio Garden, just search Mainland 98.3 FM and you can immediately connect to the program. Like I said, Punch, Guardian, Vanguard, and we're starting with the Punch newspaper. The Punch is reporting on the front page, the top story, hunger protest loses steam as DSS grills 7 foreigners. It has about 2 riders. Police crackdown halt protest. US-UK demand dialogue. Northern governors relax curfew. Sanusi blames Kano looting on intelligence failure. Tension rise as soldier shoots boy in Kaduna. Those are the riders. And the body of the story in itself, the hunger protest, which rocked the country, especially the northern part, from last Thursday, appears to have lost steam following the police crackdown on the organizers and protesters, many of whom have been detained. Some of the End Bad Governance protest leaders have gone underground and switched off their phones as the Department of State Services took custody of 7 Polish nationals arrested for waving Russian flags during the demonstration in Kano on Tuesday. The DSS spokesman Peter Afunaya confirmed the arrest on Wednesday while explaining that the action was part of routine security enforcement rather than a targeted effort against Polish nationals. So that's just the first paragraph of the story. But then I think the writer to the story can be a guide to the conversation that we're having. It would seem like as the day progresses, right, the protest is slowly starting to lose steam. We also have with regards to the individuals that we're seeing hoisting the Russian flag and even in some places the Chinese flag, which beats me. But then the police have been able to arrest about 873 protesters, 30 individuals that we're seeing hoisting flags of other nations, and also say about 7 political bigwigs in the northern part of Nigeria are currently under investigation as suspected sponsors of the protest. And that is the current situation that we have at this time for outside. There's also the conversation of Sanusi Lamido, for example, who says that he's quite disappointed in the situation we saw in Kano State, the looting, the killing, amongst many other things, and the unfortunate I'm careful to use the word murder, but then a teenage boy in Kaduna was shot, and I saw a report yesterday that his family got some 300,000 naira compensation. From that's why I'm being very careful that the families got compensation of 300,000 naira, and I'm trying to put that put together. Okay, let's take it one step.
Is anybody owning up to deliberate killing of the boy? Has anybody owned up?
Well, they're not saying deliberate killing. That's why I'm saying I'm very careful about the use of word murder.
So why pay the family if it's still a contentious issue? Investigations are, because at the last time it was being investigated really what had happened. So have we concluded investigations, and why would anybody be paying the family's money?
Well, the People's Gazette, actually, the People's Gazette reported yesterday that the Nigerian army compensated the family of the 16-year-old boy with 300,000 naira. So I don't know if this can be translated to an admittance of error, but the People's Gazette did report yesterday that the army compensated the family with 300,000.
You know, again, say when it comes to some of these online platforms, one has to be careful to take them seriously with their it's not a verified report unless you have something we can verify really. We'll just leave it at that. But again, to the story that we're talking about today, Sage, losing steam or not, as far as the protest is concerned, I think the message has been passed. And I'll assume that the government has gotten the message of the protesters. If you understand what I'm saying. I personally think that the message has already been passed. Whether the protest is already losing steam or not. Of course, you're going to lose steam. You can't have this number of arrests and some form of intimidation of the protesters without it losing steam. Naturally, it's not what happened in Lagos. Even some of our colleagues in the media from the News Central got a beating from hoodlums.
Yeah.
So all of that effort naturally was going to make the protest lose steam. It was going to suppress whatever agitations people have in their mind. But what I'm saying is that, look, I think that the message has been passed. And I also think, I'm hoping that the government has also gotten the message and will start to act on the message from the people to them as to the level of hardship and hunger in the land stage. I think it was on Midweek Politics that I said something. I keep saying it, and I'm trying to repeat it this morning for those who may not have heard it from me. That one of the trainings I got as a young boy from my grandfather is that, look, when you trample on people's rights, when you intimidate people to the point where they are still gracious enough to tell you what you are doing to them, they complain to you, they protest to you that, look, you are infringing on my rights, you are costing me untold hardship, you are cheating me. So as a leader, or as leaders of Nigeria, if we are still at that point where the city railway are so happy to openly tell their leaders what they are doing to them that they don't like, I think they should be grateful that citizens are still at that level where they are able to complain, if you understand what I'm saying. But when it gets to the point where people keep quiet, when it gets to the point where people no longer complain to their leaders for the things they consider as bad actions and attitudes towards them, and they only complain to God, you know when people withdraw and then just feel God and continue to complain to God about what their leaders are doing to them, then the leadership should be more worried than when these protests are done in the open. You know, when you protest to God against leaders or against people infringing on your rights, it becomes very problematic, and the effects are always very, very bad. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, because there are other meanings that people can ascribe to, but that just comes to my mind. You know, so it is what it is. Yeah, somehow life has come back to normalcy. People are now moving around, doing their normal things and what have you. But the struggle continues. It might not be street protest again, but I'm sure that in the minds of the average Nigerian going through excruciating poverty at this time, needless poverty at this time, avoidable poverty at this time, there's still the silent protest going on in their minds. Whether they will now be protesting through the government and the people in government, or they will now turn to God alone, only time will tell. But for those foreign nationals that have been arrested according to the DSS and the security operators, I'll be waiting to see them have their day in court. It's not just to announce arrest. I think the most important part of the story for me would be when these guys have their day in court and we're able to prosecute them so that we know what their intentions are. We know why they decided to interfere in our local affairs to the point of sponsoring people to hoist flags, so that we know what their intentions are and how we can mitigate such actions going forward, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's nice that our security operatives have announced arrest of some of these foreign nationals who are alleged to be behind all of these foreign flags, and so we need to know their intentions, what they are trying to achieve and how they intend to achieve it. And the only way they can get that information, is when they have their day in court.
All right. Well, Well, that's that regarding this particular story, especially in the north. The issue is mostly in the north, and a lot of damage has been done there. People have been killed. A lot of the casualties reported in this protest actually is from the northern part of Nigeria. Investigations are still ongoing. You can get more report on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Let's talk about the oil sector for what the papers are talking a lot about the oil sector this morning. About 7 of the stories actually borders around all of the inadequacies within that particular sector. But
the life of the economy for now. Yeah.
Well, let's take the story. What I knew you were going to make one comment. Let's take the stories one after the other. The Punch still reports crude crisis. National Assembly set to probe NNPC Dangote refinery. Now, the Senate has questioned the $1.5 billion approved in 2021 for the turnaround maintenance of the Port Harcourt refining and petrochemical company with little or no result. It also vowed to probe allegations of sabotage to the supply of crude oil to domestic refineries as the National Assembly invited officials of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Dangote Petroleum Refinery, among others, for the probe. It has raised concerns amid the pervasive allegation of sabotage in the petroleum industry by major players in the sector. It's a number of probes that are going to happen for it. As a matter of fact, Mele Kyari, for one, has said some of these probes should even be televised. Whatever questions that you want us to answer, we would do so, and we want it to be televised so Nigerians can hear from the horse's mouth and get confirmation of all the questions that they've been asking. But some of the particular situations that would be probed includes the $1.5 billion from 2021 under the Muhammadu Buhari administration that was supposed to be used for the turnaround maintenance of the Port Harcourt refinery, which, well, currently has not necessarily been turned around. So for probe over probe, and history tells us that none of these probes have necessarily yielded any benefit. So are you optimistic about the outcome of this probe?
Emphatic no. And you know that
I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
you already know the answer to your question.
Really?
Before you ask.
But people don't know.
But you know.
Yeah, I know.
So, because again, we've had several probes, several. In fact, if we try to, put a list to it, I'm sure we've had countless probes in their thousands, of the rust, particularly in the oil sector. And none of those probes have really amounted to anything, because what was the essence of probes that eventually leads to all manner of revelations without consequences for people who have perpetrated all manner of crimes, corruptions, and what have you. Again, this probe is about $1.5 billion approved under the Buhari government for the probes to all the shenanigans we have in Nigerian oil sector. I think we also lost count of the amount of money, the number of money that have been appropriated to fix this refinery. If we try to do a list of money that have been appropriated right from 1999 till date on how to turn these refineries around, the 4 refineries around, I'm sure it will be in billions of dollars. The money is going to scare the life out of anyone that tries to go into it. But again, I'm not so excited because I really don't like some of these distractions. They come to me as a distraction. Any probe that would not lead to anything, for me, comes as a distraction. They're going to chew on it, start to talk, because they know that we're people of form than substance. We are not very procedural. We are not very consistent in asking questions and querying what people are doing. Of course, they know that we also now are not the people of consequences. You can do whatever you do. Nobody. There's also an house arrest probe on the dirty fuel that has been so controversial because again, the dirty fuel that came.
Yeah, for so let's view the story properly regarding that. Now, the ad hoc committee that the now dissolved ad hoc committee that was supposed to investigate dirty fuel that came into the country, there are accusations that the head of that particular committee, Ikenga Gochinyere, paid a bribe of $1.7 million so he could be appointed as the head of the now dissolved committee, and that has
an allegation.
It's an allegation, of course, and that has caused some sort of rift between the house.
But why do you think somebody will be paid to be the chairman of the committee to probe that kind of thing? It's an allegation. We're not saying it's a fact yet. But why? But again, if you go by history, there was a time a particular House of Reps member, very vibrant, Farouk, forgotten his other name now, and that was a time where we're probing the issue of subsidy payments. Yes, the subsidy payments probe. I think it was under Goodluck Jonathan, and he was the chairman of the committee in the House of Reps to probe the fraudulent subsidy payments at that time, and only for videos to eventually emerge that the man that was supposed to be in charge of the committee to probe fraudulent subsidy payments had received bribe in dollars. In fact, when he was receiving the bribe, because again it was like a setup, we were videoing him, he collected the dollars and put it in his cap. And that was what ended the political career of this vibrant young man, Wayne. And so, again, we know how all of this happened. I think it was $10, blah, blah, blah. And that was what ended the subsidy probe of that era. Immediately that happened, it deflected from the real issues. That was what everybody was talking about. And that was how everything ended. The result of that probe, only God knows what happened to it. So, again, a probe for debt. And I said it to Sandra yesterday, or maybe to you, that look, what exactly are we probing? Why do we need to even form a very serious committee? I think a House resolution to tell the EFCC to do their job on how the dirty fuel came into the country would have sufficed. I'm telling you, just yes. Look, as we have it today, say the NNPCL still claims that they are the only importer of refined petroleum products into the country. I'm using my words carefully because again, it's one thing to hear something from the government side and begin to believe it or doubt it. So far, the NNPC claims that they are the sole importer of refined petroleum products into the country. So what's there to prove? Say, or unless they tell us that there are ways petroleum products to get into the country without the NNPCL knowing. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm with you.
The NNPCL and the regulatory agencies are the ones that are supposed to answer to how such a thing came into the country. And if there are corruption undertones, the FCC should do its job. So, but again, that one has become controversial. The committee has been dissolved. We heard that another committee to be set up.
Yeah.
You understand? Now the Senate is talking about also looking at the probe of the issue of crude oil, the issue of Dangote refinery, whether crude be available or not. As at yesterday, the Oil Refiners Association of Nigeria have said that, look, almost 1 to 2 weeks after the presidential directive for crude oil to be sold to Dangote, nothing has happened. They've even written to the NNPCL without any response. Sage, anytime we review stories as to what is happening in the oil sector, the problem of the Dangote refinery, all the back and forth, the shenanigans of our regulatory agencies, I always remember Alhaji Aliko Dangote. I am sure the man, as a businessman, as a tall businessman, would not want to be in this situation. Serious business people don't want all of this back and forth. They don't want all of this shenanigans. Businesses are run on clear ideas, sustainable ideas, basic principles of, look, you know what you're doing, you go after it and get it. But what we are seeing here is the same bureaucracy, the back and forth, the motion without movement doctrine that we've infused into the way we run things in this country. And that's why the man is frustrated. How long are we going to continue to do this now? Okay, while the man is hoping that he's going to get crude oil for his refinery now, we'll start this probe. The probe will go on and on and on. You can now see that the CEO and NPCL is saying they want to televise probe. What are we televising? What else is he going to be telling us that we don't already know? And while we are doing all of that, the Dangote refinery is suffering. The man is losing money. He's having to raise dollars now to import crude into the country. As we speak, the credit ratings of all of these businesses have been downgraded. As we speak, there's a report in one of the papers that even said that, look, about 3 of his companies have lost billions of naira because of the devaluation of the naira, because of some of the obligations to some of their foreign partners who are supposed to pay in dollars. So the man is trouble. And whether we like it or not, he is considered the second largest employer of labor after the federal government. Look at what we are doing to his business. And so what example does that show to the so-called foreign investors we are trying to bring into the country? Say, anyway, that's the story of Nigeria. That's where we are. I don't know.
Fuad, Mele Kyari had a lot to say to the Senate ad hoc committee that are investigating the alleged sabotage within the oil sector. For example, he says you should understand the business if you're coming into the business. Before you can set up a refinery, you should be certain of your source. You have to secure a source for your feedstock, and you must find a market. And this is me quoting Mele Kyari about him. So he says that Dangote, highlights.
He didn't know what he was doing. That's what he said.
So you should have verified that you get a source of crude before you got into the business, rather than come now and start playing wolf.
That's what he's telling Alhaji Aliko Dangote.
Well,
I mean, you are not smart. You should have known the source of where the crude is going to come from.
You sound like my grandmother.
Thing. As you walk, like all of our colors will say.
Well, he says they're not breaching any laws. They're not breaching any laws. That's what he says. They're not breaching any laws.
Are they breaching any law?
No, they're not.
What they are doing is to sabotage a local business owner. We know that they are not breaching any law, but we are seeing, look, the sad part of this is that we are seeing deliberate sabotage with people coming boldly to tell us all manner of nonsense. Look at what they are telling the man, say. You should have known. You didn't do your research. You didn't do your feasibility study. A whole Alhaji Aliko Dangote. And do you know why the man is that frustrated?
Why?
Can you now see? Can you now see what I'm saying? See? You can now see. Can you now tie what Mele Kyari is saying now to what Ahmed Farouk said the last time? Oh, now. See? Everything is looking.
Kono.
It's not gelling. See? Do you now see? So if they now televise the probe, you know what it's going to be telling us?
What?
That the man should have known that, where would he get his crude from? An oil producing nation, say, telling that to the owner of the largest refinery in Africa, single train refinery in Africa, that look, man, why are you disturbing us? Didn't you go do your research of how you are going to get crude? That's what they are telling him. Unless somebody is going to come up with another interpretation for me. See, if there's any other thing that can be more ridiculous than this, people just tell us. And that's why the man is frustrated. The same Mele Kyari that is talking were the people that kept telling Nigerians Dangote refinery is coming. Oh, it's going to be the game changer. When it comes, all our problems are solved. They told us severally, consistently. They were all visiting. Anytime you complain that we don't have local refineries, what they will tell you that don't worry, Dangote refinery is coming. The same people are now telling us that the man should have known that, where is he going to get crude, should have found out now. Look at the story of Nigeria, see. And when you complain, people think you are just so happy to come on radio to come and talk about this thing. It is highly frustrating, if it's unbelievable. Say, I'm on the research now, trying to gauge Nigeria's performance in the oil sector with 10 other oil producing nations of the world. As we speak, see, while we are sitting to discuss this unfortunate situation we found ourselves, where we have leaders that are supposed to be on top of our situation, trying to solve our problem, coming up with excuses upon excuses. Saudi Arabia, the Aramco, which is the NNPCL version of Saudi Arabia, has just declared about $150 billion revenue for the first quarter of 2024. See, as we speak, Saudi Arabia is doing about 9 million barrels of crude oil production per day.
They can do more. They're just feeling sorry for the rest
of them. They are just doing that. Let us help other people. Because let's be our brother's keeper. That's what they are doing. Just to stabilize the price of crude international.
Yeah.
And here you are, look at our own story. I think Alhaji Aliko Dangote. They don't show him. When the man said the cabal or the mafia in the oil sector are worse and more terrible than those of the drug cartel, we can now understand what the man is saying. Very, very unfortunate.
Well, let's wait for the televised probe really and see what they have to say to Nigerians.
You'll watch it, David?
Of course I will. I mean, I'm curious. I really want to see what they want to say. They've given us a tip of the eye.
When you watch, you come and tell me what you watch.
Why? You're going to, you know you're going to watch it too. Why? You're going to. You will.
So that I'll have more headache.
You will. Is Oroilu. Do you get? So.
Oroilu.
Page 21.
I should not rest. I should not sleep. Because of Oroilu.
There's no sleep. I don't want to say for the weekend because you are not wicked. Page 21, And page 7 is where we find that story. They are related stories, so we decided to take them together. But then we're not done talking about the oil sector. But very briefly, be reminded that you are listening to Trends in the Papers on mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola. I'm still having conversations with Fᴜʟᴜ. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. So join the live stream. I see people already dropping their submissions, which is great. Thank you so much. Our live stream on Facebook and YouTube at mainland 98.3 FM. We're streaming the program live. So it's back to the papers. We're still looking at Punch newspaper and still talking about the oil sector. Now we have Wale Edu, who had quite a lot to say. I'm talking about the Minister of Finance, right? He says that despite subsidy removal, that Nigeria still sort of spends around $600 million monthly on fuel import, and he sort of blamed the high import bill on neighboring countries, even in Central Africa, that they continue to benefit from the country's fuel imports. Now, aside from that, he highlighted that the truth is nobody really knows what our daily fuel consumption is. All the figures all the figures we have are just estimations. We've seen 60 million, we've seen 40 million,
44 million.
But Wale Edu says the truth is there is no confirmed data regarding how much fuel we consume on a daily, and we're spending up to $600 million importing fuel.
We don't know our daily consumption until today.
That's what he said. Why you? It's not me that said it. Oh.
I'm just curious.
That's why I said it.
Now till now, we don't know the daily consumption.
For sure, we don't.
Why? One of the people that brings this product into the country, the NNPCL people, they don't know too.
They don't.
Why they know? The Minister of Finance should know.
He said he doesn't know. We don't know exactly.
So wait, on what basis are we not calculating this $600 million?
Subsidy. Exactly. It's even the how are we calculating the unofficial subsidy we're paying, because it's
and even what we are paying to bring in the product.
Exactly.
The consumption is supposed to be the gauge.
Exactly.
And if the Minister of Finance is telling you that up to now we don't even have accurate figures of our daily consumption, you can see that we are in trouble. He said a whole lot too. Let's take others.
Well,
what the Minister of Finance is loaded.
He says, the minister said we should begin to ask ourselves, how long do we want to do that? I'm trying to see the part where he spoke about...
Asking us, or we should ask him.
Okay. He says on the $570 billion that was released to state recently, the minister said it was reimbursement under the COVID-19 financing protocol. He says this actually refers to a reimbursement that they received from December last year, and I think it was under COVID financing protocol. But the point is that the state have received more money. Mr. President has charged them to ensure food production in the state. So he said something about the monies that are being given to the state under COVID-19 financing protocol, that the states have money, and so he necessarily doesn't understand why there's starvation in the states at this time.
Well, before he said that, he also justifying the right of subsidy removal. I think he talked about the fact that when the subsidy era were only basically feeding other neighboring countries, as far as Central African Republic, basically talking of what even reasons why subsidy has to go, because again we're spending money, and he said I think only about 40% of poor Nigerians were benefiting from the subsidy of that era, blah, blah. The same rhetoric of why subsidy has to go, even though a lot of us continue to question the lack of capacity of people in government to deal with the problem around subsidy rate. If there was a fraudulent practice around subsidy payment, that was the job of government to fix. If there was a problem with diversion of petroleum products as a result of subsidy, it was also the job of the government to fix. That's why we have people at affordable food. But again, since our government is always quick to give excuse for failure and lack of capacity to do the needful and then put the burden back on the people, we can then move on from that. But again, there's always the question as to how to remove subsidy. What was the method, the appropriate method? All of the presidential candidates at that time, yes, agreed to removing subsidy, but I think one thing that was consistent with what they said was that it was going to be a phased removal, right?
Yeah.
And that for every phase of removal of subsidy, some things would have been put in place to mitigate the effect of subsidy removal. In fact, in the APC Renewal Manifesto, page 37, has been reported severally that what was in that manifesto was a phased removal of subsidy. Whereas while that is being done, things were going to be put in place to, of course, deal with the suffering and hardship that was going to come with it. Of course, whether we like it or not, you can't take a policy decision that will move the price of petroleum products up PMS particularly, from around 200 to 700 naira per litre without consequence. So you should have been prepared. That policy should have been better managed and better handled. It happened the way it happened. We are suffering now. But the unfortunate thing is that as it has happened the way it has happened, the people in government are still not on top of the situation. The information we expect that by now they would have, they are telling us they don't have. We've been told that the daily consumption has dropped from around 60 million to around 44 million. But the Minister of Finance is telling us that they don't even have the accurate figures yet. So we ask ourselves, and that's why preparation is key. When we talked about that, the fact that the president should have been more methodical in handling the issue of something, this is exactly what we say. You need to get the facts. You need to understand the system. Get into office, settle in, understand the peculiarities and the complexities around the decision before taking it. That's what we are saying. But now you jump into the lagoon, your boss will say, and let me to interpret. Ilẹ̀ tí ò tójú ẹni ṣú, ìrìn ẹ̀ ṣòro rìn. Is that not what it is?
I have no idea. What? I don't.
Yeah, you buy it now.
What do you mean I should interpret as?
Ilẹ̀ tí ò tójú ẹni ṣú, ìrìn ẹ̀ ṣòro rìn. That's what they say. You understand what I'm saying? That's what they say.
We'll use torchlight for it.
We'll use
torchlight. Don't worry. We'll use torchlight.
And no matter what anybody say, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was never president before. He just became president.
Right.
Yes, he's been a very versatile politician, astute politician, but the best he did was the governor of Lagos State and the leader of the APC. This is the first time he's president. So he should have been more careful, should have been more methodical. I keep referring to what the late MP Abiola said about the same problem when he was campaigning there. And if you remember, we played the sound by severally. When he said that, look, I can't take a decision for now. I need to get into office, check the books. He said, look, I've been telling the NNPC to supply me with information. I've not gotten anything. I've just had layers and layers and layers of confusion. But what I'm getting as president, it will be an opportunity for me to sit down with these guys, check their books, understand the complexities around the oil sector, and then take informed decision. Even in the president's speech on inauguration day, what was there, according to reports, was first removal of subsidy. But the president said immediately. And when he went to France, he got courageous when he got to the podium to take that decision. Here we are now. And we need to ask ourselves, what manner of courage is that? And that's why people are saying that, look, there's nothing wrong with the president accepting that he made a mistake. See, this is wrong to accept that, look, I made a mistake and I'm ready to correct my mistake by maybe a partial reversal of that decision. But yes, this is the story of my darling country, Nigeria, a country blessed with milk and honey, with crude oil, with solid mineral resources, arable land, but wakes up every day to listen to the lamentations of its own people. Unfortunately, the same people who hope that people elected into power one day will fix their problem, wakes up every day to see situations where the people in government deliberately would gaslight the people into believing that they are the problem. You look at the problem of hunger in the land now. See, everything you hear now is that you people should go and farm. Let everybody go and farm. It's a silent way of gaslighting the people as if they are part of the problem or they are even the problem. Whereas the people elect people into government to solve their problem. Those people that have been elected to solve people's problem become the people, the problem the people are solving while they are also solving their own problem. And the only thing they get from the people they elect to solve their problem are excuses upon excuses for not being able to do their job.
Well, there you have it regarding that particular story. Well, let's attempt to say something that we can very much identify as good news, because we have the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, who says power generation hit a 3-year high of 5,105 megawatts. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has announced that Nigeria's power sector generated 5,105 megawatt of electricity on the 27th July 2024, describing it as a 3-year high. He announced this at the inaugural meeting of the Interministerial Power Sector Working Group in Abuja on Wednesday. So, Fuad, Adelabu is telling us now that we've gone beyond the 3,000, 4,000 megawatt, and we're now doing 5,000. I know that you're about to compare else with other countries that are doing as much as
not
3,000 and so. But then, Fuad, this is success in the context of Nigeria's crisis. We're doing 5,000. That hasn't happened in about 3 to 4 years. So, yeah, that's it.
5,000 megawatts. 5,000. 5,000, right?
It's an improvement from 3,000.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And let's hope that this will be sustained. Yeah. Since you want me to address the issue that way, right?
Yes.
Let's hope it will be sustained, really. But I also have loved a situation where Mr. Adelabu should also speak to the Abiku grid we have that is collapsing. I think about 4 or 5 times or 7 times in just 2024. I think that's also one problem. And I also think that one of the things it should also be talking about now is how to begin to push the states to domesticate the electricity power act that allows them to also build some structure at the state level so that, again, we can unbundle some of these things. You understand what I'm saying? But I think it's still a long walk to freedom. There's a lot that we still need to do to revamp and revive the power sector as it is.
Right.
Because again, if you are going to compare Nigerians with other top economies of Africa, at least the first 4 economies of Africa, there's none of those countries that does less than 30,000 megawatts of electricity.
Well, the Minister Adelabu says that his target is to achieve at least 6,000 megawatts by December. So, what do you have to say about that, Fuad?
Let me slow and steady. There is. We'll get there one day. If we, the way we are going, say, right? We've moved from 3 to 4, 5,000. Because again, generation for me, for now, is not even the major problem. Yes, it's a problem. We need to generate more. You understand what we're saying?
Yeah,
but I think the major problem is other value chain of the power sector, which is the transmission and the distribution.
Yeah.
In fact, the transmission particularly, that middle chain, that middle end of the value chain, there's a lot of work that we need to do. Because, you know, the problem has always been that, look, you generate, the transmission cannot carry the load, and it collapses.
Yeah.
So, while we are celebrating the fact that we are making, you know, baby step progress with generation, we should also look at the fact that this thing you are generating, can the transmission people carry it on their head? Because the more generation you put on it, because the entire capacity, in fact, the transmission structure has an installed capacity to carry about 13,000 megawatts a day.
Yeah, yeah.
But because of lack of investment, lack of structure, maybe deliberate sabotage within the system, even when we do 4,000 and put it on their head, it will collapse. So if we are generating more and we are not working to fix the problem in the transmission end, then we are going to run into trouble. There's also a problem at distribution. You see situations where distribution companies are not even taking power from the transmission because of lack of capacity to distribute. So you can see that it's a very complex situation. But the fact that, look, we are not even talking about reduced generation, we are talking about improved generation, is something to celebrate. But it's a long, long walk to freedom, really, for us in the past.
Right. Well, that's on page 10 of the.
I want to address the issue well, the way you like.
It's not about me, Fuad. I just wanted us to at least celebrate that we did. I mean, the grid collapsed a few days ago. Now we're doing 5,000.
Clap for the power minister. Oh yeah, clap for the power minister.
No, I mean not. It's on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. The Punch also reports that Nigeria is urging ECOWAS defense chief to curb coup. I don't know, coup terrorism is threatening West Africa's existence. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, all of these countries have been victims of coup d'etat. And, you know, like the Yoruba proverb says, and I'm not going to try to say it in Yoruba, but then if your neighbors are dying, it's a proverb for you. So, Nigerians are being, you know the proverb I'm trying to say, Fuad, please don't reduce my computer. Yes, you do. Anyways, but you understand what we're trying to bring out of this. Nigeria is now very wary, and they're asking that the ECOWAS defense chief do something about this trend of coup d'etat across West Africa. It is starting to become concerning, Fuad, very concerning.
Of course, you can't have this trouble in West Africa. Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. I thought that African countries have gone beyond the era where you see the khaki boys running government. But for me, in this 21st century, it's completely embarrassing. You know, sometimes when I see the Burkina Faso leader, in camouflage and the way he runs around, representing his country as the leader of the country, And what comes to my mind is that what would these foreign guys be thinking about Africa? That young man, you see the way he dresses with his pistol, and then some people wearing masks. This century Africa, it's completely embarrassing. The same thing you have people in Nigeria, those ones don't even know what to do now. President 𝐵zoum is still under house arrest. They don't know what to do with him. As we speak, leadership, there's chaos in Nigeria as we speak. They don't know what to do. The same thing is happening in Mali. They are saying, oh, bye-bye to France. The Russia they are in bed with have no strategic plan for Africa. And so, so for anything, it should be something we discourage completely. It should not even come into the conversation to begin to think of military takeover in Africa. It's not going to help. We knew what happened when we had the military in the past. It was complete failure. Terrible corruption. Are we going to go back to the Abacha era? No, it should never happen. But what we should tell our leaders of today is that one of the easiest ways to stop people from even thinking about any form of military takeover is to give them good governance. Give them the dividends of democracy. That's the easiest way to shut the military out of it thinking of even coming back to governance. Because if people enjoy the government and there's dividends of democracy, even an attempt by the military, the people will rise up against them and chase them back to the barracks.
Right.
So the politicians of today should do their job. Give people good governance and give them the dividends of democracy, and the people will stand with them. There's no need to be wary. There's no need to be worried. If the military tries anything, the people will push them back to the barracks because they know the government is working for them. That's what the African leaders should be doing, especially the West African leaders.
Well, that particular story is on page 14 of the Punch newspaper. Other reports that we have here, as we're almost out of time: EFCC quizzes Ogun officials over government funds. Good morning, Miss Sandra. How are you doing today? I just want to shout out our head of programs that they are quizzing your officials over government funds. That's on page 16 of the Punch news.
I'm sure people in Ogun State will like this, but
yeah, well,
one thing to quiz it's another thing to see the entire process through. Again, if you look at the story, talked about Wale Adedayo's petition. The man at the book, the local government chairman, our darling friend, who wrote that petition. So what the sources are saying is that probe is related to that petition, where the man alleged that about 10-point-something billion of local government funds have been diverted by the government. Alleged. So again, the governor has immunity, but his officials don't have immunity. So maybe that's why they are quizzing.
Yeah.
So we'll see what comes out of that.
Indeed. That's on page 16. Now, for Guardian newspaper, the top story: amid hurdles, public universities make 12 billion naira from transcript request in 5 years. It's more or less an editorial. So if you would like to read that, you can check page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Other stories here: 24,816 people killed, 15,597 kidnapped in Nigeria in the past 5 years. Is another editorial. In 5 years, over 24,000 people have been killed and about 15,000 more have been kidnapped in the country. A testament to the deplorable state of our security architecture in the country. Is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. All the other stories here we have actually addressed earlier in the day. Oh, there's this one here that we didn't talk about. Don't fund politics with union dues, ministry tells NLC TUC. It's on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper.
There's the allegation that most of these union leaders are also looking at moving into politics.
Yeah.
Again, there's the allegations that even Jᴏɪr was looking at the political position after the NLC, because maybe looking at what 𝐴DAMSOSHEWELE eventually became, from NLC leader to governor, now is senator. But there's nothing wrong, really, for them to have political ambition. I think what the story just says is that use your personal funds to do that.
Yeah.
Use
union fund. Right. It's on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. And finally, for Vanguard, the top story: steer clear of our internal affairs. Federal government warns foreign powers. This is more or less a story around the Polish citizens that
I agree. It is stay clear. We are an independent nation under God.
Right.
A sovereign independent nation under God.
It's
stay clear of our domestic issues.
Right.
Because it really is not as if there's any good intentions really when they come. We should solve our own problems, But the funny thing, the irony of this statement is that we tell them to stay clear of our issues, but we go back borrowing money from them.
This is where we're going to end the conversation this morning. So thank you very much, Fuad, for your analysis, and thank you to all of you for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll be back at 8:40 to take your contributions. It's Open Mic Thursday, thankfully, so you get to pick the focus of the day. Fuad, thank you so very much. Please be on standby.
Thank you for having me.
We'll reconnect in about 10 minutes. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland FM. The Morning Express continues. My name is Sage Babalola.
Attention everyone, this is an